Hey guys, how are you?
Morning.
Hello, Patrick. It's early.
It certainly is. Hello, Harry.
Hey Patrick. We're just gonna give it a couple of minutes and then maybe and wait for Fanny as well and others to join.
Cool.
Then we can start.
Hello.
There she is.
Hey guys.
Nicole's just sent me a message saying that just start when Fanny's here. So I guess.
Oh, sorry. I didn't think I was late. Like it's 3:01, guys. Like this is really on time. I'm very impressed.
Well, yeah.
So, Nicole, okay. Okay, yeah, I just saw the message. Perfect. Harry, do you want to share your slides? I don't have so strong of a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, of course. Let me just share my screen. Okie dokes. How's that looking?
Perfect for me.
It looks great.
It looks good.
Super.
Patrick, are you here? Yes.
I am.
Hello. Cool. Hi.
Hi.
All right, so let me see how to. I was trying to get the screen and the chat, but I'm not that strong. Let's see. 1 second, just one quick second. Quick second. Just get set up here. Perfect. So now I split my screen. Oh my god, I feel like a grandma. Cool. Well, thank you, Mikol, for having us on this very summery day, at least here in France. It's very hot, so I hope you guys are enjoying the summer as well. And so yeah, so I mean, well, maybe let's start by introducing. Here, he's the artist after all. So go ahead, Patrick.
I don't know about main character, but it's a pleasure to work with the both of you. I'm an artist, one of the mentors. Been in digital art for coming up on, I guess, a little over 9 years now.
Spectacular.
All right, Harry.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am an art director and content editor for the editorial collection. I work with Fanny. And yeah, that's me. I joined the space in roughly like late October. So very much a spring chicken. And yeah, over to you, Fanny.
All right, so I'm the late chicken. I'm the early chicken then. Yeah, so I've had the pleasure to really follow the space for quite a while, working with NFT platforms like snark.art, editorial, which is now a defunct application, and now I've been working more closely with collectors who do want to learn more about the space and start a collection. Artists, and quite not a platform anymore, kind of realize that you have to be a little bit more independent to be able to be critical and really be independent in the space. And I've been doing a lot of work with Micol and Vertical Crypto Art and Mocha on curation, and very happy to be here. So we'll show you a few things. It's really our opinion, and would love to hear from you in the space is about. It's early enough that it's quite still you make it what you want. So at the same time, it's not great because you can't really follow step by steps what others have been doing, but we have enough data already, I would say, to know what it's been working, it's not working, and go from there. So yeah, let's get started. Kick it off, Harry. All right, so so this is the house is on fire. First slide, but it's better to have it as a first slide than the last slide, because that's just
2 more minutes.
Yes, to acknowledge that this is still very overwhelming, especially with all newcomers, new people joining, and if you go to the next slide, there's really a variety of applications for NFTs, and the biggest ones still are collectible, but this is by platform. By the way, probably on all sides, I could not, for the sake of me, remember the source of this slide, so you have to forgive me, but all the other slides are sourced. So that's kind of the bad news, right? It's really all over the place, all over the blockchains, all over the use cases. But the better news, you go to the next slide. Oh, next slide. Yeah. So it's still quite art is still a small fraction of the NFT market, and we were in Paris at the ECC conference, which was the Ethereum Community Conference, and nonfungible.com, which is one of the data sites on NFTs, showed this slide, that's the next slide, that on the first semester 2021, really art was 14% of the use cases. Granted that collectible include CryptoPunks and Meebits and Bored Ape, so it's really inflating the collectible part, but it's still good to remind ourselves we don't have to understand everything and follow everything in NFTs, because not everything is absolutely relevant. So Harry or Patrick, I don't know if you have any comment at this point on that intro.
Yes, Patrick, didn't you say hitting a soft spot between, when we spoke last night, between collectible art and artworks in the NFT space is helpful?
Of realizing hey, this is what the makeup of the space is, just kind of helps focus a little bit. So I like this slide a lot.
Yeah, so I think this is and again, getting data on the space is still quite hard. Non-fungible is really actually they're not tracking right now like most collectible projects, but they're stepping up their game to really showcase everything. So I would really follow what they have on their site, and I've been talking to them quite a lot, and they've been really pissed because a lot of people and a lot of journalists are actually using the data wrongly, like saying like, oh, it's a crash, like Non-Fungible said NFT crashed, and it's really misreading the data. So it's like, even if you use data like, and like, reputable like publications, like get it wrong. Like, so I would say more and more we have data, like the better, because it's something that like can get us all crazy, and keeping sanity is quite one important first thing to do in that space. And I think we all came to terms with the FOMO that like, yes, we can't follow every single game, every single collectible. And yes, maybe we did not play Axie Infinity when it was cheap, and now we can't have like, anyway, so you know what I mean. So it's we're still fit in this 14%. So somehow it makes me feel better. So I hope it does to you as well. But so that's a good way to focus. But if you go to the next slide, Harry, like the bad news is that it's still very hard to get attention in the space. You have a lot of marketplaces, NFT marketplaces. So we listed a few for you on the next slide, where they're I like to, and again, I think we can talk about, not everybody agree about that distinction between permissionless, invitation only, and curated. I'm not even sure the ones in curated are really curated, but really the main distinction is like the permissionless, where everybody can go and mint anything, versus like the invitation only ones where like you have to be approved. Curated, I put Folia, Blank, Palm, and Snark.art in the curated section because they do pick a very small amount, or like a very small number of artists they work with, and really spend more time like curating their exhibition. However, they still curate to sell, right? Like, so this is like some sort of like bias as well, because they're going to pick the artists that they are mostly sure that will sell on their platform, and their profit businesses. So, but one thing that I'm like absolutely cannot hear anymore is that like if you go to the next slide, it's like invitation only doesn't mean, the next one. I changed. Yeah. Invitation only does not mean curated, right? Like if you look at like, of course it's a great honor, or like you're probably going to sell for higher prices on super rare, but super rare is like gonna select the artists that they feel are gonna help them more than they help you, and so this thing like Miko, like curated to sell, I think this is like very anti, or like it's like two opposite goals. So it's very tricky, and just being aware of that, like this is something that you should not. If you go back to the last slide, Harry, I'm sorry, I mixed up the slide.
No.
Like NFT marketplaces, like they're here to sell, they're businesses, right? So they will help you if you're like a big name, and they can write an article about you that will help them as well. But they're not going to do much for your marketing, or like, like the featured on the homepage, like, et cetera. I mean, let's be honest, even if they had the best intentions in the world, they have one homepage, right? So it's like, how many artists can they actually really support? So this is quite something that like people are jumping through the roof when they get accepted on super rare. Well, it's not like the Holy Grail.
I'd like to,
Patrick has something to say.
Yeah, I'd like to underscore what you're saying, Fanny. The invitation-only platforms like SuperRare, they're not going to connect you with new collectors. There's no kind of like holy grail. If you land on these platforms, you have to bring your own collectors. People in general will not discover you on these sites. The best you're going to get is a little bit of a marketing bump when you get accepted, but they're not going to connect you with new collectors. I mean, it's really kind of your task to build up your networks. Like the slide says, it won't help that much. So really partial to OpenSea and Hen on the previous slide. And then just so you know, SuperRare currently has 60,000 people that have applied, and they have 3 people that don't work full time on going through all the applications. So it
Noted. And Kellen is asking what's the benefit of being on platforms like SuperRare if we bring the collectors, just prestige. I would say it's also like a way to be able to, like somehow like put the price higher. People expect to pay more on SuperRare. But if you look at like artists, if you go back, Harry, can you go back to the slide with the platforms? There are a lot of people who are actually, and I would be interested in what Patrick, like what you think of that, but there are many artists who actually like start on OpenSea and, with like a few series or a few collections, then when they get invited to SuperRare on an Origin, or like when they get accepted on these platforms, like try this out for like unique pieces, because anyway on SuperRare you can't do editioned work. And then even put like the lower cost ones on Rarible. And this is a little bit of the game, right? Like, I mean, this is not ideal also because you're dealing with so many different smart contracts and rules from all of these platforms, but can really like pick and choose at this point. I don't know, Patrick, what your thoughts are on that.
I think those are good points. I think the big choice is kind of what chain you want to be on, right? And if for ETH, the different platforms have different benefits, and there isn't kind of a one size fits all approach with this. Super, I think is very good for kind of the unique one of ones, but like you said, you can't do editions, and collections are better served, I feel, just my 2 cents, and I'm frequently wrong, on OpenSea. If you look at something like Justin Abersano's Twin Flames, he created a collection of twin photos. And I think one of the things that's so interesting about it is that it's a collection on OpenSea. It has the floor price, it has the number of unique collectors, it has the volume that's been traded. It kind of checks a lot of the boxes that the collectibles collectors, and they're not exclusive, but a lot of the collectors are also very into collectibles, so it kind of checks both of those boxes. So that's something that I think is very interesting, because it kind of hybridizes the art and the collectible markets. And I think that's one of the reasons it's done really well. Jacob Briglin also just did a photo series on OpenSea. Different marketplaces have different benefits to them. So there's no one proper solution. And I love Hen. I'm partial to Hen. I think Hen has the most vibrant community of all the marketplaces, and that is a very unique value in and of itself.
Super.
Yeah, and I think that's also like really at this point it's also about finding your own home, like some actually like I discovered recently that Ephemera was like a smaller Ethereum based marketplace was actually meant for photography originally. And like the niche marketplaces are gonna increase in numbers definitely, and so that also interesting to look at that. Harry, sorry, I cut you. You were saying something.
Oh no, I was just saying super. I'll input more. I'll input more later into the presentation. Yeah.
Cool. So I think one other myth I would like to tackle is the real impact of the art players that have been playing some role into the crypto art market, and I'm sure like the most public and loud voice is the one of the auction houses. Who have either auctioned works on their own or partnered with Super Rare or Han or a few other platforms. But most of the time when you say like, oh, great, like I'm at auction at Christie's or Sotheby's, I made it, great. Like now I'm on a roll and like I'm set for life. Unfortunately, this is not the case. So if you go to the next slide, we've seen like a lot of the artists who have been auctioned, and you, Patrick, you mentioned Justin Aversano. He actually really rallied his community to get his work to be auctioned at one of the Sotheby's sales that had a spot open for a work picked by the community. And I mean, Justin's like, he's a marketing machine. Like he just did constant rallying on that, and even for the sale, he was really doing most of the marketing. So if you go to the next slide, there's one example I really wanted to show you, because one might argue that Justin is not like that famous, that the auction house like did not really care about pushing his work. Well, if you're PAC, you're kind of in the same boat, because one of the work by PAC was auctioned at Sotheby's sale. So not the PAC non-fungible sale, but it was I don't know if you guys remember how natively digital, a curated NFT sale. That was the sale where this work from PAC was being auctioned, and it's a fantastic work. Like Fade is actually very complex. It's like you have it changes states, like it recreates itself when it changes hand. If it doesn't change hand, it's like like it just dies like over a 1 year period of time, etc., etc. And that's all on the right side. And this is PAC himself that explained it on Twitter. If you go to the Sotheby's website, even before the sale, you only have the details that are on the left, which is PAC Fade 2021 non-fungible token 1 SVG minted. And it's, I mean, fair enough. Fade is a living timepiece about digital permanence and identity. Okay, that is nowhere close enough to actually advertise the work by PAC. So, I mean, before I go to the 9 CryptoPunk sale, I don't know, Patrick or Harry, if you want to add anything here.
Yeah, I think, Fanny, are you on their website right now? Because I think they've updated the description for it. But you are right, with PAC's work, in an artistic sense, it is beautiful. Plays with a temporal kind of qualities of the blockchain. Every 30 seconds, it rotates again. After a month, after it changes hands, it changes gradient, and then it finally dies. It was a shame to see that all of this wasn't really included on the Sotheby's website, and the impetus was put on PAC and like every artist on the platform to do it themselves. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, so I think this is like, I mean, just one example, but it's definitely not the only one where it's still showing like a disconnect and a lack of knowledge really from these art players, like even like very knowledgeable, and because it's not what they do. So first, like this, two things actually, like to just think about. And I'm not saying you should not go to Sotheby's, right? Like I'm just trying to give it some like making it relative in the grand scheme of things. And actually, it's not as important in crypto art to like be at this big sales, because even with Sarah Zucker, like she had her work auctioned several times, but that hasn't really increased her floor price on crypto platforms afterwards. And Sotheby's and Christie's, when you think about it, at least galleries, they're trying and they're supporting the artist, and at least they're trying to like help the artist. But auction houses, they're pure like sales machine, right? Like their core business is in the secondary art market. So normally do not auction works by like directly from the artist. Like that is not what they know how to do. So already there's like a little disconnect with their like primary function. One thing that I found really funny, and that you can go to the next slide, and I'm sure you followed the 9 CryptoPunk sale. But I wanted to summarize it here. And Patrick, if you want to take that one, like I'm really glad. Like,
yeah, but, they just had no idea what they were doing. Honestly, I mean, they're like you said, they're sales machines, and they didn't present PAC's work with any context. I mean, they're trying to understand this. They're trying to kind of reclaim their gatekeeper role between money and art. They just like their Punks promotion was taking these tiny little stickers and hiding them around Christie's, and that was kind of it. And then they presented the Punks themselves with very little context, and they ended up selling for less than they would have probably received had they just stayed natively, in the space.
Yeah, true. And one thing here that I found hilarious is this Christie's branded like little piece of paper, probably printed by an intern, like, can you find all 9 CryptoPunks before they are sold, and with the little check boxes. And honestly, that would have been fun if it was in addition to some real work around like research and presentation of the work and education to like find collectors. Like literally that was it. Like the marketing was this piece of paper and the tiles. But that also reflects the fact that like the reason there's a picture of Noah Davis on the left side of the slide is that the way it works in these auction houses is that there is one, maybe 2, but mostly one champion that think this is like the future and that is trying to push it internally to a big machine. Big machine Christie's is like, okay, well, there's a lot of money. Like, I don't really care about anything else. I'm just gonna, like be opportunistic and take a piece of the cake, which, for a profit company, fair enough. This is a good business model. For the artist, not so much. And in this case, like it's sold to a group of investors led by this guy, which I don't remember the name, Kordansky. They, I think this is Kordansky. No, this is not Kordonsky. Anyway, so he was, let me find his name so I'm not telling you like anything wrong. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so he was like, he's a gamer, an investor. He's a big speculator, I would say. And then if you go to the next slide, there's actually like this all backfired because G-Money was actually led through the galleries by the specialist and actually wrote a whole series of tweets, which is brilliant. Like you should actually like check it out. Like if you type G-Money and how Chris fucked up the punks, you're gonna find it. And this was like quite true story of that sale related by G-Money. The other thing being that Flamingo DAO wanted to acquire the work and got denied by Christie's KYC because Christie's KYC did not know how to deal with the DAO, which fair enough, that's a little new, but still prevented like real collectors and people who would like really cherish the work to win against a speculator. Patrick, anything else to add to that story?
No, I think you covered all the. I wouldn't call them highlights, but I think you covered the majority of the points.
Lowlights.
Yeah.
Very dim.
Yeah. Okay. So the conclusion is like really like they don't know how to market crypto art yet, and so it's not all that gloomy. I'm like really sorry. It's not trying to be like discouraging. Like we're getting to the good thing. And the good thing is that bridges are coming, right? Like there are a lot of attempts to bridge the art and the crypto markets and help in the right way, like build this space, not just from an opportunistic like selling value point of view. Maybe I'll let Harry do the meme, which is really like the meme you created, Harry.
I enjoyed making this. Yeah. So, one of those bridges is through independent curators in the space like Nicole. And with Kadaf and Mocha, one of the links that can really help artists like yourselves just create a name for yourselves within this space is to just get involved, I mean, like you already are, on the programs they provide and really just keep up to date with everything that's going on. It really helps more than you could imagine at first. Am I right to move on this quickly, Fanny? Like,
that's fine. Because I think one important thing is that and one important thing, you can go on the next one, because I think this is really where there's two different tempo, if you want. Like there's a tempo of like drops and it's like, oh my god, I haven't sold in like 5 seconds, I'm dead, and like I will never be able to make it in the crypto art space. Wrong. Like it takes time. So I think this is like just curation. Like, I mean, the more you see like curated exhibitions, and Mikol can probably talk more about that, but like some very well curated exhibitions are maybe last for like 4 months, and maybe they don't sell out, like, but at least there's time, research, documentation done around it, around the works, interviews with the artist, and then in the long run, if you can handle the like fact that like it doesn't all start very fast, that it will really be valuable in the long run.
Yeah, I'd agree with Fanny on that. One thing I think is important within this space, mostly as like a traditional arts person as well, that's just like the spring chicken, is that as artists, curators are beneficial to your work getting to your audience in the way that you want. They are constantly aware of the right time, place, and relational kind of things that you have going on with other artists. And if you engage with their platforms and their social networks, then you can really just help yourself by just getting involved. Which kind of takes us to this slide. I don't know if Fanny wants to.
Yeah, I mean these are just examples of like what obviously like independent curators like also can't do it all, and it's not like the like solution to all our problems. But the exciting thing is that like on the crypto side, there are a lot of like new ways to think about exhibitions, curations, artists, like payment, and so on. And I think this is where, as Harry said, if you're not already, I think this is where the discussions are like very interesting because we currently we are at the fork right now, like no pun intended with crypto forks, but we're really at like a point where like we have the option to like do nothing, let the auction houses and like traditional art players like take their part of the cake and like pretty much get all of the crypto art and like merge them with their contemporary art departments and be done with it. Or we can also bring better ways for the market to work, and from our own research, our own like documentation, you as artists like explaining like what you do, why you do it, to much more advanced things like Mocha and their token. Like Dada is actually published a paper on called The Invisible Economy, looking at ways for artists to be paid not only based on their work and their popularity, but also on the time spent on their works and so on and so forth. So I think this is like on us, like all of us in the crypto space, to make that happen. And going back to what Patrick said on the hand community, a lot of it is coming from that community, because it's at the like forefront of like everything that's happening. So this is quite something. Patrick, I would like to like give you like time to get your input here. Because
Sure. No, I appreciate what you said about the fork. I think, it is, I don't know how long we'll be here, but I mean, it's definitely a crossroads. I mean, everybody is seeing crypto art as the interesting new thing now. And, I think it's really important that we, just my opinion, but I just retain our autonomy and don't let the Christies and Sotheby's and Phillips and galleries of the world, start taking their piece and becoming kind of the new gatekeepers and turning this into the traditional art world all over again. And I think the options that we have, especially with DAOs, and kind of retaining our autonomy within the space, is just a really important cause. And I think when you dig into kind of the token economics like you have here, it's a fascinating way of managing and voting and kind of decentralizing governance. So I'm a really big fan of Mocha and what Vertical are doing, and I think it's just so important to retain our autonomy and kind of resist the entreaties of these outside entities trying to come in and get their slice of the cake, as you said also.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this is like, and we'll see so that was really like the first like overview like that we wanted to give you, and we'll see like in the more practical second part of that workshop, like how to really like how does it apply to you? Like governance is not an obvious thing right away, but when you think about your collector base, like this is a way you can really engage with your collectors and really create your own community around your work. And that's, I think it's a beautiful thing. Like we don't talk about that definitely enough. So let's get to the what can you do? Because now we're like, okay, you can't do that. Like they're not gonna help you. Like, all right, bye, enjoy. No, we're not gonna do that. And a way we thought that might be easier to share some ideas between Patrick, me, Harry, you guys, Nicole, is to take the lifetime of a work step by step. So if you go, Harry, here, so obviously not necessarily in the right order, but most of the time you create your work first, being like a digital work, like any way you're doing that. This is probably the step where we're going to have the least feedback, because that's really your practice. But then on the minting, I think we should start there, except if Patrick, you want to say something about the creation part.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can create. I think it's just really important to don't try to bend yourself to what you think people want. I think it's just really important to just be as authentically you as possible when you create your own work, because it's not about giving people what they want. It's about really kind of exploring what path you're on, and then connecting with the community to bring people to you, as opposed to you bringing your work to them. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think this is actually I do have something to say about that step actually, because a lot of people are like wondering what they should start with, like, oh, is this series going to be like better than this one? Like, how should I price it, etc., etc. And I think this is where like there's definitely trial and error is definitely gonna be part of the process, and to that you can really envision a series. Like if you look at the drops, for example, like from Nifty Gateway, from like most of the big like popular platforms, they try to like catch the widest net. So again, if it doesn't make sense for all practices and all artists, but if you do want to test some reaction of the market to your work, it's quite interesting to have like maybe very few unique works that are priced higher, and then a middle series, and then like a very or like an open edition or like a larger edition size series, which really can help you reach out to more people, because some people might be interested, but they might be like, oh, this is a little like pricey, or just like style wise, like they might prefer one thing or the other. So I think this is kind of where you don't have to pick like one thing, but this is, and it's hard to give like advice on that. Like, you all have so many different styles and practices and audiences, but this is something that I would consider, like just expanding the cast of the net.
I think those are great points also. And just to add just one more thing to it is also too, I think it's just helpful to not think about your work in terms of what people expect from you. It's really easy to kind of box yourself in and say, hey, you know what, like, I make this style, I should continue making exactly this style because that's what people expect from me. Give yourself the freedom to go with whatever direction you want. I mean, don't get trapped by the concept of your quote brand. Just go as far down your own personal rabbit hole as you can and just kind of see where it takes you, and make sure you just kind of think about that so you give yourself the freedom to, you know, continue to kind of grow and progress.
Yeah,
One thing
oh, go ahead, Derek.
Sorry, no, you go first, Fanny. I'll have my 2 cents.
No, please go up.
Okay. Well, I think when Patrick and I were talking about this last night, we talked about explaining your work as well. And that's mostly what I do with Fanny for the editorial collection. With the artworks that we have, it's really important. I mean, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, if you embellish your creative writing for what you have, or at least just have a strong sense of what you're about, adding to what Patrick was saying, it just makes it so much easier for, say, a new collector to come in, or if they have any questions, then you can answer, and you can provide more and really engage through creative writing as well as what you've minted. So.
I'm glad you say that about the story. I don't know why. Personally, it's the hardest thing I think for me in my own practice to do is to, but it's so important to have a story, and obviously independent curation helps a lot with that because typically they'll have a very good idea of context and framing and so forth. But I think you just really have to think about your art from like a outside perspective. And if your collector is trying to explain your art to somebody they want to share it with, what should they say? And you don't want to put that onus on them. I think it's helpful to be able to talk about why you created your art. If it's a very process-oriented piece, just explain the process. Like make it easy for people to understand what you're trying to say. I think there's kind of a natural tendency towards not wanting to kind of do that work because it's hard to come up with, text a lot of times and, an intelligent explanation of kind of what you may have intended or a story that's evolved. I mean, it's not easy to do. I just want to share that, but it's really important to do it despite how hard it is. Again, my 2 cents. I just think it's really important to have a strong story that you can share so people just understand more about your work, understand more about you, understand more about the context, the framing, everything else. It's just, it's incredibly helpful, and people expect it in many cases.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not easy, right? Like, I mean, it's not easy. It's not something that everybody likes or want to do. And I think this is really where, but this is how people connect with your work, right? Especially with digital work. I mean, it's not like you fall in love with an object or like sometimes you look at it on like a bad screen, et cetera, et cetera. So the story is even more important. Like think about conceptual art, right? Like, I mean, sometimes there's nothing but the story to the work. And I think this is where you have to be creative a little bit, because yes, not everybody wants to write like a page explanation on their work. Sometimes people don't actually like to read this neither, but I think it's where, asking for help, recording yourself, if you want to talk about it. Like, I mean, these days, like a short video goes way longer than like a one page text. Adding, inspiration works, like documenting or like taking behind the scene pictures. I mean, look at Hackatao, and the picture that they take when they're actually painting like the works, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is like where that is really important, because again, it's all about storytelling. And yes, like this is the work of professional curators, and this is what they do. But until you get into one of these curated exhibitions, then before that, like, you need to get your story out there one way or another. And to go back to what Patrick was saying about like not being stuck in one style, this is also where like telling the stories of like works that are very different from one to the other is going to help like people understand why you did this in an abstract style and the other is like, you know, photography, for example. Like it's very like important.
And I appreciate that. I think that's a very good point. The other thing is, where do you share your story? You know, I wish I retained the source of this, but you know, I saw that 75% of the sales on the platforms come directly from Twitter links. That's not people discovering on the platforms themselves. It's literally people seeing work, knowing you, connecting to your space from Twitter. So in terms of, you know, obviously there's a lot of things to do, but crypto art is Twitter. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram. It's not anything else. I mean, it's the vast majority of this, and the community all happens on Twitter. So in terms of where you're spending your time, probably going to get the most return for your time spent, you know, on Twitter. So.
And it's where like, that's where like going back to my sentence of like being creative, like this is really where you can get creative to like share videos or behind the scene or really anything really. And I think one mistake that we all do is to imagine that you know, oh, I already posted that yesterday or 2 days ago, so I'm not going to repost it, right? Like it's too much. But like it's, I don't remember like there are like data on like how many of your followers actually see, you know, like your content, and it's tiny percentage. So so really don't like hesitate to like, I mean, without being obnoxious, obviously, but like to repeat and like and stick to it. I think the people who like give up are like I mean, pretty much like the only people who like get their story across on Twitter are the people who like persevere and connect with other communities on Twitter.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, so I was just going to say, Patrick, you mentioned last night about using analytics to your advantage and really hitting it where it matters on social media.
Yeah, it's again, you know, it's kind of these called multidisciplinary approach. I think it's good to really understand your avenue to your collectors and to your community. You know, to what Fanny was saying, tweets have a very short lifespan. Your average tweet will stay on a timeline for about 15 minutes. So you really need to pick when you want to share your tweets. And, you know, there's obviously a lot of different time zones here, so this changes for everybody. So if your tweet has a lifespan of 15 minutes, you're going to need to be retweeting your own tweet at different times, a few times, to make sure you reach more people, because you're reaching just a small percentage of your followers, which is where kind of analytics comes into play and becomes incredibly useful. You have the ability to, and you don't have to buy any ads. I mean, ads are terrible, but the ad platform on Twitter will give you access to a lot of different analytics that can be incredibly helpful. For example, I know that the majority of my followers are online between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I know that Saturday and Sunday is not a particularly busy time for people that I'm following. And I know that late at night, Pacific time, nobody's really looking at Twitter. There's sure there's a few, but the point being that if I have spent the last 2 months on a piece of art and I want to share it for the first time, I want to make sure that I share it when I'm most likely to get the most eyeballs on it. Because, like I said earlier, the tweets only last about 15 minutes, minus if people comment on it, if people retweet it, if people like it, it extends the life a little bit. But it really, really helps to understand when people from around the world are most likely to see your work, and really try to post your content during those periods. Whether that's art, whether that's something you really want to share. I mean, if it's important to you, really try to understand when your followers are online and post it during that time. It makes it go a lot further that way. The other thing, which I think is really important to note, is kind of the reciprocal nature of social media. I was off Twitter for the majority of 5 years. I came back kind of in November, and still had a decently large follower base, but nobody engaged with me. And it's because I was gone for 5 years. The relationships I had were gone, and people don't engage with you unless they know you, despite the quality of the content you're putting out. So it's just really important to engage with other people, build your community, comment on people's posts, retweet a few things. My 2 cents, I wouldn't retweet excessively on art, because it makes it actually pretty tough if you're an artist. If I go to your page and I'm like, hey, I want to see some of your work, and I have to scroll through 25 retweets of media, it becomes really tough to figure out what you did and what you didn't. So I'm partial to comments. It just keeps your page a little bit cleaner for people to find your work. But it's just really important to engage people like authentically, meaningfully, without just try not to have a bias, try not to be selling your work to people overtly. Just try to just exist and be supportive and communicate and engaged with people, and you'll receive the same. So the more you put in, the more you get out. I hope that's helpful.
I think this is very helpful, and something that a community is at that, right? Like being on Twitter or somewhere else, it's really where it's both ways, and on Twitter specifically, when you connect with people, you like show interest. I mean, it's still a small enough community that even successful artists, like if you DM them on Twitter, are gonna respond. Like if you're not like, oh, hey, check out my artwork, like you want to buy it. No, absolutely don't do that. And don't say I told you to do that, because that's not I don't know what I said, but like the important thing is ask questions, like say, hey, like I'm very interested in your work, like do you have like a few minutes? If you don't, I can send you questions, like et cetera, et cetera. You have to engage. And that brings me to another point, that it's like managing that community and that like a collector base, but it's like also like the supporter base. Maybe there's some people who are like supportive, but they're not going to collect the work by you because of financial reasons. Well, that's like where the earlier you ask people for their opinion, even like to another artist saying like, hey, like I have 2 different like ways my work is going right now. Like, would you mind if I shared it with you for your insights or something? The earlier you share your work process with other people, the more people will support you early. And early adopters, early supporters are the best because they will follow you to the moon. Because they feel that they really selfishly, but like they feel that they helped you at the beginning. And that's true of a product. That's true of like, it's very like basic, like just human psychology. Like it's like you need early adopters and a small base, and you don't need to like have like 1,000 collectors like to start. You need a few supports, like, but very good supports. And I don't care. It can be your brother, your sister, your friend, your aunt. Like my mother is a great supporter of me. I'm not an artist, so it's not very relevant. But but this is like very important to like have a strong base of people you can share every update and every new things, but in a genuine way, right? Like not like, oh, new thing, like, right, but like really getting them into the process and engaging them for their opinion, like both ways, as Patrick was saying.
I appreciate what you said, and it recognize that this all takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to build the relationships. It takes a lot of time to develop the relationships, and you're not gonna shoot up the follower count and connect with a lot of collectors immediately. I would argue that it's far more important to engage fellow artists and just let the collectors find you, and they will when you start building up and you're sharing each other's work and so forth. I mean, collectors are looking for art that makes sense for them personally, right? They will find it if it's on a platform that they collect on. If your work is being shared on social media, like they'll find it. So don't focus on selling to them or finding them or anything else. I mean, just focus on building your community with fellow artists, and kind of everything will happen. But it takes time. So, be careful following too many people, because I'm trying to pare back. I'm on Twitter for far too much a day, but I'm following 1,800 people, and it's incredibly tough to keep up with everybody. Like I'm trying to pare that back a little bit. I don't know how you can follow more and still kind of develop relationships. It's far more important to have strong relationships with a few people than have okay relationships with a lot of people. People will support you when they're very connected to you, and people will a little ambivalent if they're just moderately connected. So just really develop a handful of relationships and prioritize that over developing a lot of okay relationships.
Very interesting that you say that. It reminds me, you know how it's called? It's a Dunbar's number. It's like the maximum number of relationships a person can maintain. And I think, let me look it up, but I think this is kind of like 150 is really like so it's not like crypto based data, which now sounds very, very tiny compared to what we do in crypto, but no wonder we're all overwhelmed and stressed and everything, because it's way over what we can as humans actually manage ourselves. So this is quite something to remember. I'm I lost the chat, but I'll put it on the chat. One other thing on Twitter, because it's Twitter is it's all ephemeral, right? In terms of content. So if you spend too much time producing content that is just on Twitter, it's a waste of time. Twitter should always link to somewhere where your content is actually recorded for a longer period of time. And that can be a blog on Medium, it can be YouTube, it can be your own artist website, but keep this content alive outside of social media. Absolutely do not create content that is just for social media. I mean, if it's a small tweet, okay, but if it's a whole work description, if it's a video, if it's a podcast or whatever that is, absolutely put it somewhere else, and think about Twitter as a linking body.
Yeah. So any questions? I can't actually read Discord because I'm sharing.
Well, so before maybe we go to the question and you stop sharing, maybe put if you need to contact any of us.
Yes,
I think
of
you
course.
added the contacts, because it's
that's who we are.
As we said, we're available. So.
Yeah.
How do I actually see my Discord? So weird.
And feel free to share. Hey guys, sorry, I'm back with good internet. Feel free to share. Thank you so much. This was great. I think feel free to share your Twitters as well in the chat so that people can
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we should also do that.
and get in touch with you. But yeah,
if we find
went through-
can't see the chat anymore.
I will share as well. So
I'll close my screen share now. So yeah, screenshots, 3, 2, 1, and there's the cat.
Screenshot the cat. I mean, the cat is the most important thing of the presentation. I'm sorry, but
Yeah. All right.
yeah, feel free to ask questions. We went through a lot, so I think there's a lot there to digest, but I'm sure we'll have questions. So don't be shy.
yeah, and again, if it's not like now, definitely later as well. It's not necessarily easy to do that on the spot.
Walt here.
Hi, Walt.
Hey, Walt.
A lot of great information. Thanks for that. Lot to think about. You mentioned the social tokens or social money at some point. What do you think about that? Like, is it something that would be beneficial to get into, or is it? I think it's a bit like the platforms themselves that it really doesn't maybe help you unless you have already some kind of following or collector base already.
I can answer, but Patrick, I want to let you if you have.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, so like the like for the DAO tokens, right? I mean, it's like Discord. It's like a lot of different things. I mean, you become part of a community, and the DAO tokens, are often membership, and they're also voting. So like for MoCA, the museum, for example, right? They have MoCA tokens that allow you to, eventually vote on curation decisions and so forth. So it's just more opportunities to connect with different communities. There's a lot of different bubbles, I guess, on Twitter, right? I mean, there's the hen community, there's super community, known origin community, there's all these different communities, and there's lots of crossover, but kind of the challenge you can find is that if you just exist within one, everything you do kind of just reverberates within that small bubble, yet there's hundreds of thousands of other people in the greater crypto art space. So it's important to just kind of make sure you're in different communities, I guess, sub communities within the greater community, and DAO tokens and Discord groups and kind of the other options you have help just kind of broaden your footprint, give you access to new relationships and so forth. So the DAO is an interesting organization, and I think it's worth exploring because it opens up a lot of communities.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it brings up like a few things, Patrick. I think this, I mean, it is absolutely essential that you keep your circles open to other circles, right? Like, I mean, even outside of like crypto and really to like find the right communities for you and expand your collector base like along the way. Like for me, and that's my personal opinion, but I do believe that like soon enough, like all or most crypto art projects or series or artists even are going to come with their own like social or community token, because this is really not DAO, but like like, I mean, there was this company called Roll that got infamously hacked, so I'm not going to recommend it, but it's like creating your social token as an artist is also a way for to engage your collector base and to say like, you are now part of my community. And before, I mean, it's not very different from like having some people on a newsletter, right? And letting them know about what's happening with you. Like, I think this is like where I mean, collectors like Harry and I like worked with are really appreciative when they receive on top of the NFT they purchase, like an additional like token from the artist, even if you don't know what it's really gonna be useful for, or like what it's, you know, if it has any like financial value. That's not the point. I think the point is to say like you are now part of something, like a community around the works that you like, and it's a very strong link between these people. They all like your work, and actually like you could do like things very simply, like from like all your collectors or these like social token holders, you can give them access to a Discord channel where you can update them about your work and about upcoming things, and making them feel special. I think is the main focus here. It's making them feel special. So whatever you use, if it's a DAO, if it's a Discord group, if it's a social token, anything like is worth using in that case.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly what I was thinking about, like the platform role, something like that, like launching my own like social token.
Yeah, I do hope there are more things coming up. I don't know, like I honestly haven't followed like what they did like fix after they had the big issue, but there are a few other like what is it called, like seed, it's not seed roll, but it's seed something that like is also I'll put it in the chat, I'll find it, but there's few other that are really seed club, like social token incubator. So they're doing mostly, you know, like corporate clubs. I'm not sure, but it's like seed club is another one on top of roll, and then hopefully all of that you would not need like roll or seed club to actually create your token. I mean, this is the whole idea of decentralization, but that's another topic.
Was there another question?
Hello.
Hey.
I have a question. Like, is there should be a price difference that changes according to the platform the artwork is minted? Like, I mean, the price should be different if it's one-of-one on Hijet Nunk or one-of-one on Foundation, or should it be the same?
I personally think they should be the same, because this is a game that people have been like starting to do, is compare prices for artists who are on like let's say super rare and non-origin, and like and comparing and being like, oh, it's interesting, it's like less expensive on non-origin, maybe I'll go there. But it's really, at the end of the day, it's the same body of work from the artist, so that makes no sense to me. I mean, happy to be proven wrong, but I would not do it.
Also, if I can add, I think like the price of your work should reflect the work, not the platform. Like I think we, you know, one of the conversations, more like informal conversations that we had, I mentioned, you know, think about what you can do with the platform, not what the platform can do for you. So it's kind of like the same situation here. It's not because it is Foundation that your prices should go up. It's like the price, right? The way that you price your work should reflect the craft and what you think that the value of your work is. Like I wouldn't use the marketplace as a way to dictate your prices, but rather your work to dictate it, because that adds value also to it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I understand it.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is my Blab. Yeah, so we have a question. We haven't entered the mainnet yet, so we only plan on our Genesis. And it's been quite a road. We don't like, we plan every week. It's been like 3 weeks we plan to release our Genesis on Ethereum, because I don't know, it's like we're very nervous about it. And pretty selfish question. How do you actually like build that collector base? How do you go about, like, do you approach them? How do you like build the relationships with them, with the collectors? Like, where do you find them? Well, not like, yeah. How do you find the collectors, or how do you build your relationships with them?
Yeah, it's a fair. I mean, it's a fair question. I think this is it's not an easy one to answer, I would say, but I would really start with fellow artists. Like, if you look at other new art movements, let's say like the Impressionist movement, to really be super French classic, like these were actually people the artists were purchasing works by other artists, and this is slowly but surely, like, this is like this. I mean, this has been happening since 2016. You know, like artists, like crypto artists, supporting other artists, and then it's going through this like communities and reaching out on Twitter, as Patrick mentioned, and opening this like circles that you build. And again, it's not fast. It's not like, there's not a magic like, you know, like button, and really you don't want the magic button, because you really want people to be engaged with your work. I mean, so during the crazy bubble, like they were in March, April, like some, you know, artists sold like really fast and for like crazy prices, but then if you sell to like speculators and like go for the fast route, well, it's also a fast, like, you know, like slap in the face, because then these collectors were mostly interested in like short sales. So it's like just really making a high profit like in the next weeks after they had the work. And then if that did not happen, they were pissed. So they were like literally just like taking a loss and moving on to another thing. So it's a healthy, so like more like slow relationship building that you really need to be looking for. And I know it's not like, you know, what we like, you know, what people want to hear, but this is unfortunately that hasn't changed.
No, they absolutely understand, and exactly what we sort of, that's why we ask a question, and that's why we ask other people who can really give you good advice. And
yeah,
thank you so much. Yeah,
I think the slow relationship building is a very good point. So I don't know, personally, so I've looked for collectors that collect styles that I feel like would be compatible with mine, and then I follow them, and I think it's trickier developing relationships with collectors than it is with artists, because there's a very well-grounded distrust, I think, of a lot of between artists and collectors initially, because I mean, the collectors, I feel like, very fairly assume that, like, okay, you're just trying to get me to notice you, or you're just trying to sell your work to me. So it's just really important not to try to sell people, not to try to manipulate people, not to try to do anything other than just kind of develop an organic relationship with them. Like, don't comment on every post, don't comment on every other post, but if there's a post that they make that you like, just make a comment on it, say something about it, and then just kind of let it go. And then over time, like, commenting on anybody's, collectors or not artists, as long as you just engage people authentically without an angle, you'll start to develop relationships with some people, and not others. I mean, it's not everyone's the right fit for you, but just taking a long approach to just building kind of real relationships with people, will pay off for you down the road. It's a long road, but the sooner you get started, the sooner you get there. And just really like authentic. Don't be salesy or pushy or needy or anything like that, and you'll be fine.
I have to just add something to what Patrick was saying, because Fanny and I do get, when we manage the editorial collection, we get certain artists that they get in touch quite a lot naturally. They want to maintain that relationship with the collector, but as Patrick was saying, like aggressive marketing, it's not always needed. Just so long as you're keeping engaged within the crypto community and you're continuing to make your own work, then once you do get to that point, if you meet a collector, they will come to you more times than you having to do the other way around. But,
yeah, and I think this is it's good sense at one point, like where it's of course, like if you're like contacting like collectors and saying like, here is what I have upcoming, if you're interested, like I'm available to answer questions. But if it's like constant and then during the sale and then it's like, 2 hours left for bidding, like this is not like, if the collector or like if a person has an expressed interest, this is not because you're harassing them that they're gonna develop an interest. I mean, this sounds silly when I say that, but like at the end of the day, like there's being too pushy is gonna not serve you well. And we've used a lot like Justin Aversano's like example, because yes, he's great at marketing, but he's also very pushy, and that's like doesn't work with many people. Like it's a little, it's a fine line, and it's okay like to like experiment, because it's also like you have to find your own style. Like maybe some artists are absolutely anonymous, like they don't share anything, or they speak only in all caps in Twitter, like mentioning anybody, but yeah, so it's fine, like and you're not gonna get it right the first time, but it's okay, like I mean, again, like the span of attention and like the memory like of people on Twitter is 15 minutes. So
I think it's important to also be available. You're building your community on Twitter. There's a lot of crossover between the communities, and I know it can be a lot to mint on ETH, and that can be prohibitive for a lot of people. But if it's possible, I think it's nice. I think it's nice having some on Tezos and ETH, just because a lot of collectors don't cross over yet. So it's nice having just something available for everybody as you kind of move through the space. And the other thing I've seen a lot is pricing questions. And I think Mikol made a very good point. You should definitely ask for a reasonable amount for the work you've put in. You shouldn't ever sell yourself short on that. You should ask for what you feel the piece is worth and just really stick to it. I think on the other end of that, it's, hey, how do I maximize the amount of money I get from this particular piece? And I think that's a question that will drive you absolutely insane, and there's no good answer for it. I was fortunate yesterday to wake up to a DM from a collector that I have a lot of respect for, saying, I put an offer in on your piece. And I didn't know what the offer was yet, but I knew that I was going to accept it, because that's a collector that I think is here for the long run, and is somebody that I felt very fortunate to be with. So I went and saw it and accepted it. I was going to accept it regardless because of who it was. And I think it's really, really important to get your pieces with the right people. It's nice selling things, but I would in a perfect world, I would definitely take less from the right collector than more from somebody who isn't going to be an advocate or is just looking for a quick flip. So I wouldn't stress about maximizing. I would stress more about just making sure the PC is reasonably priced and is finding the right collectors.
Also remember that like collectors are also artists. Like, you know, like this is something that I say it all the time, but I just feel like it's so important. Like you've heard it from Sarah as well, like this week. And I think, you know, you've heard it from loads of everybody essentially. Collectors are artists too. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be that kind of like list of collectors that we all know about on Twitter. Your collectors can be also people who are also artists. So it can be this group of people can be your collectors essentially. Like, so, you know, there's like, so see the word collector as a more broad than, you know, strictly speaking like art collector, right? Because I think that's the beauty and the nature of the space too.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everyone. That's why we ask, because also to the point that Fanny made, when we see on the Twitter, we see like, for example, like a collector, well-known collector, and then we see thousands of people jumping on his every tweet, and like you start feeling like this fear of missing out. Like you all probably know from the space, and you feel like maybe I'm just like not. Maybe I should just like push it more. Maybe I should like, but it's a bit awkward, and you don't know, and you like just. Yeah, so many great things were.
I think if if it doesn't feel right for you, I think this is where like, you know, you should like stick for your gut, because I mean, come on, like you know, the tweets where like someone is like, well, show me your art, I have ETH to invest. Like, you know what? Do you really think that guy is like gonna be like a good support? Like, this is like, you know, he's just, I mean, this is just, you know, your collectors, this is the fun. Like, you want to find out like the things you want to connect and everything. Like, this is just
exactly. Like, and also that this is what we do. I mean, whether we are in NFT space or we are not in NFT space, this is what we do. So we look for like a long road, like many of you mentioned, exactly. And when I see that engagement on Twitter, like around those like well-known collectors, I think, well, if everyone will continue like that, would be like, when they just burn out, if you just continue jumping around one collector every day for like his every tweet. Yeah, so many questions. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for every input.
No, and again, like, I mean, you know where to find us, and I mean, even here, it's happy to help. It's a great. That's why we all love this community. So it's really good to have you, and can't wait to hear more about the residency. And so good luck for everybody, and don't be a stranger. Be in touch.
Thank you, Harry and Fanny and Patrick. Really, really useful. So thanks a lot for your time. If you have any other questions, guys, as always, like, feel free to put them on the chat. You know, ping people like directly, as I think we mentioned about like building community, like just, you know, even these are like relationships that are important to nurture. Like, I met Fanny online, I met Harry online, I met Patrick online. Like, we all kind of created these relationships, you know, on Twitter. So similarly,
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
and it was literally a DM, like, you know, to Mikol, like, that's just be like, hey, it's interesting, like, let's catch up. Like, literally, a lot can come from that.
Exactly. So a long way, DMs can come a long way, and especially obviously if you are organic and authentic and connect with people, like, yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. It was great.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Right. Have a good day. Bye.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.